Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests, and we also have Mr. John Hamilton, the British High Commissioner to Antigua. He's present with us. And we want to welcome you all to the Museum of Antigua and Barbuda. I'd like especially to extend a huge and heartfelt welcome to the World Monument Fund and the accompanying team of professionals who have traveled here to Antigua to collaborate with us. The World Monument Fund's mission to protect the world's heritage sites is truly commendable, and we're excited to have this partnership. This visit marks an important step in the journey to conserve this iconic and historical edifice, the old courthouse and legislative assembly, which houses the Museum of Antigua and Barbuda today. As the famous Chinese saying goes, a journey of 1,000 miles begins with one step. We are making those first steps. This will be an interesting and informative evening. It is my pleasure to introduce the Master of Ceremonies, Ms. Desley Gardner. She's also a member of the board, and she will guide this evening's proceedings. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Ms. Desley Gardner.
Thank you so much. I had no idea. Welcome everyone to our first in a long time Unlock the Museum State of Conservation. It is truly an honor to finally be able to offer you legitimate, guided, and informative updates on the state of conservation of our museum, our beloved home for so many years, even before, I was a thought. But I am very happy that we have your continued support throughout it all. And our Unlock series, of course, speaks to the importance of the artifacts, information, and archives that are here within the museum, but we hope to also expand to all areas and assets that we have throughout Antigua and Barbuda that are so important to the core of who we are as Antiguans and Barbudans. And many of you have shared in preserving and sharing this information, and we hope that we can continue to expand this beyond the shores of our beautiful Twin Island. So today, we're starting here on Long Street, and we're hoping with more events we can expand further. Good? Yeah. All right, thank you. So we're moving on to provide you with an update from the Historical and Archaeological Society. We're the ones who manage the Museum of Antigua and Barbuda, and we are supported by you, our members. And for so many years you have supported our efforts, and so I now invite Dr. Reg Murphy to give you an update from our perspective as the board. Dr. Murphy?
Thank you, Desley. Pen. No, walk in your pen. Okay, thank you. Good evening. Welcome to the museum. When I come here, I stand here and look, I think back of all the things that's come out of this organization, all the good things that's happened here. I think it's a shame that we have sort of tend to lose sight of the bigger picture, of the importance of what we do here. This organization started as the Archaeological Society out of Mill Reef, ironically. And they were curious as to the objects that they were finding when they were building their houses. And they invited in professors from Yale. And from that, Nicholson joined them. And then it spread and spread. Eventually became the Antigua Archaeological Society, establishing the first museum at Mill Reef in the late 50s. By mid-60s, they were working in Indian Creek and at Memorial Bay. And those sites are all gone mostly now. And I joined as a youngster in 1972 in that St. Joseph's Academy School when they came and gave a talk there. And I've been in the society ever since. And it's been a journey. We never thought of our own museum. And there's no museum in Antigua. Desmond and I were just digging, trying to keep one step ahead of the bulldozers. And we had so much stuff, we're keeping it at home. We had nowhere to put it. Until one day Lisa said, Desmond, you guys need to get a museum because this is ridiculous. Stop burying the artifacts in the garden because you have no room to put them. Yeah. And so we decided, let's go hunting for a museum, and we ended up between here, or the old Treasury building. And this one came up when Mrs. Harris, Bridget Harris, decided, hey, she's upstairs archive, museum downstairs. And this is how we ended up here in 1985, thanks to CEDA and UNESCO grants. But out of that, that core organization was really vibrant, the Archaeological Society, and it became more localized. It's no longer a Middle Reef sort of a group, and it is really dynamic. And from this organization, the EAG was formed and splintered off. Betty's Hope was formed and splintered off. And we started active field projects, and that still goes on up until the year of COVID. And every year we have these 20 or so graduate students and senior academics who come to Antigua to research because we put archaeology on the map in this part of the world. And we have publications in all of the top scientific journals. And if I get, when are you going to write a book? I say, when are you going to read? So people want pretty pictures now. But it's a matter of this, it's out there and we're out there, we're making a presence. And I see this as a part of the next step in our journey. This is another mountain we have to climb. This building is literally aging, and we have to keep one step ahead of it before it collapses on top of us. And we're hoping to form a beautiful partnership. I hate to sound like Trump, but whatever, big, beautiful partnership. A huge partnership with the World Monuments. And let's make a really a good showcase of a museum in the Caribbean. Because we want to attract not only the quality of membership you've seen we have here today, joined us, and I must say congratulations to the new members. But also, we want to have training for curators, training for conservationists. We want to be able to restore artifacts. We already have the inventory of the sites and the new legislation we passed. We can use that inventory to select the sites that can be listed for the National Registry. We have the data, let's get with working with government and let's be the ones that lead that charge and not create some other organization and then they have to come to us for information. So we have a lot happening, a lot's been going, a lot of goods coming out of it. And again, welcome to the new members, welcome to the World Monuments, and thank you for coming this evening. I'm looking forward to seeing you. Oh, before I go, Desilee's next, I'm going to make a suggestion to her right now. How about what you see here isn't the collection. A museum, 80% of a museum space is dedicated to collection, storage. And only one or two items from each dig comes out. We have dozens and dozens and dozens of boxes, probably hundreds of bins filled with stuff, including maybe 100 dead people. But you don't want to go there, you don't want to meet them. And we do a lot of forensic work there. We train a lot of generations of forensic scientists, trained here in Antigua. So we do a lot of voluntary work with the police as well. So we do a lot of good in the communities, and we sort of suggest the next unlocks can be up at the lab so you can see the challenges we're facing there as well, because we have no more storage. And we can maybe open some of the bins, air them out for the first in a long time so you can see collections done from sites that no longer exist. So to me, this is another stepping stone, and it's really exciting. And again, the new members, and welcome them. And good to see you here. Welcome to the museum.
And it's so fun hearing him speak about meeting Mr. Nicholson when he was in high school, because that's similar to how we met when I was just a third form student at the Antigua Girls High School just 2 years ago. And we met and we were able to form such a great relationship. And so I've been forced into this profession. And if you want to support me in being released, please sign the petition I have at the door at the end of this event. But it has been a fantastic ride. And as you can see, we've been doing amazing work with your support and contributions, and we cannot take that for granted. And I also want to take a moment to just acknowledge, following our last annual meeting, general meeting, that we have added 4 new members to the museum board. We have Dr. Hazra Medica, we have Professor Justin Robinson, and we have Gay Heshmi and Mark Brown, 3 of which are in the crowd with you. So during the meet and greet, you're now challenged to find them and meet them and welcome them to our society. Good? That's your homework. But we welcome Hazra, Gay, Mark, and Justin to our team, and they have already been providing so many invaluable inputs, and we are thankful to have them as members. So moving on, Member Reg was speaking about our huge partnership, and that has been facilitated through the efforts of Stephanie Ortiz of the World Monuments Fund, and she has supported us and lobbied for us in spaces that we have not stepped foot in yet, but we are grateful for the efforts, and we see that she's been able to supply us with a great team, and hopefully, as we continue these projects, we can offer training, so then the team comes out of Antigua. What do you think? Yeah? I don't hear you. Okay, that sounds good, that sounds good. So I'm just gonna welcome Stephanie Ortiz to the podium to give you an update on the project here. Stephanie?
Thank you. That may make it progress. Yes, please. I think that. Okay, so you can just point to me. I shall. Hello, everyone. Welcome and definitely thank you for joining us today. We are so thrilled on behalf of World Monuments Fund. Just want to say that we are very thrilled to be here and be partnering with the Historical and Archaeological Society of Antigua and Barbuda in a very worthy effort of rehabilitating the museum building. We're just getting the presentation connected. Thank you so much. So my name is Stephanie Ortiz. I am the Regional Director for Latin America and the Caribbean for World Monuments Fund. I'm just going to give you a very brief overview of what World Monuments Fund is and how we ended up here. So please, next. So World Monuments Fund is a private organization dedicated to safeguarding heritage sites around the world. We have worked at over 700 sites since we're celebrating this year our 60th anniversary. Next, please. Thank you. Celebrations all year round. What we do, we focus on three main activities. So we have physical conservation, we have capacity building. It's very much a priority for us in many of our projects, particularly if local capacities are not strong enough. We want to make sure that whatever we do is sustainable for the long term, and so we want to help build those capacities up. We also do advocacy through our World Monuments Watch program, mainly. It's a heritage advocacy program that we have every 2 years. It's nomination based. Please, next. And the way we work, and I mention this because we are a World Monuments Fund, and fund tends to be a very confusing word. We work through partnerships. So we have to raise funds for whatever project that we would like to take on. We don't have necessarily readily available funds, and the way we work is through local collaborations, partnerships, bringing, if we need expertise coming from outside because it's not available locally, we help do that. And so each of our projects is very different in our approach, but a constant throughout is local engagement. Next, please. So just to give you a brief overview, in the Caribbean, and this is the insular Caribbean, focusing, I'm not talking about, the big or Grand Caribbean. We have worked, you'll see in orange, the places where we have worked in the past. So Cuba, Jamaica, Haiti, Dominican Republic, Puerto Rico, Antigua, Barbuda, and Barbados. And just to mention that in Antigua and Barbuda, in the 2018 World Monuments Watch, we had Government House listed on the watch, and we have an affiliate in London, WMF Britain, who did support the creation of the Conservation Management Plan for Government House a while ago. And so these are some of our projects that date back a couple of years. More recently, next, we've worked in Haiti at the gingerbread houses following the 2010 earthquake there. We began working there immediately, doing an assessment, and we've worked there consistently pretty much until maybe a year or two ago. We actually engaged Zach Rice, who I will invite shortly. So we have worked with him in the past. And next, a little bit of my home. We now have a project that is wrapping up in Puerto Rico at the Central Aguirre, south part of Puerto Rico. And that is more about wooden conservation training and capacity building there for a former company town. Next. So, what brings us to the Museum of Antigua and Barbuda? We have been very fortunate to have a group of generous donors express their commitment to heritage preservation in Antigua, and they wanted to do work through World Monuments Fund. And so we are thrilled, again, to be partnering with the museum and with the Historical and Archaeological Society to support the rehabilitation of this building, the former courthouse, which is one of the oldest buildings in St. John's and certainly the oldest public building in the city. And what we're doing here with the HAS, primarily is, right now we're doing a conditions assessment, and this is meant to guide the necessary repairs of the building. And this we see as the first step to rehabilitation and enhancement of this cultural and educational resource. And so it's funny because you're all sitting here today, but a couple of hours ago there was a scaffolding there was scaffolding here. These areas here were open. It was active worksite, which is why you see the plastics all over the displays. But the local team has been absolutely wonderful, and you can hardly tell that any work was being done here today. Anyway, next. So just to say that we started this process earlier this year. Zach, Watson, Rice, and I came over in April, and we met with the museum staff and board, and we wanted to take a look at what was needed for a thorough conditions assessment. And so next one. Without further ado, because I've already explained what WMF is, and again, thanking you for having us here, I will introduce Zach Rice, who is our lead conservation architect and project manager, who has identified an absolutely wonderful team to carry out this work, and he will tell you more about that. So Zach, please.
Good evening. Thank you for all being here. Put my glasses on to read my notes. So as Stephanie said, I'm a conservation architect. And on this project, I am also the project manager for the conservation assessment, which is this, that's good, which is the initial phase of understanding the building and its needs. The team that is here with me are all professionals in various aspects of heritage conservation. Not here with us today. The first team was a digital documentation team. They came with me in July, and we did laser scanning of the whole building and site, all the floors, all of the spaces inside the attic and on the roof. And that laser scanning was used to create two things. One, what are called 360 views, which are, I think Stephanie will, not now, but we have a slide of that, or did we? We have a slide of the walkthrough of this video. So this is in the attic, and this is Maxim from Build 3 Scan 3D, and he is walking with a laser scanning device in the attic, very gingerly. Fortunately, it was he was an electrician with Local 3 in New York City, and so he's used to spaces like this, which is fabulous. And from what he is doing there, we were able to produce these measured drawings of the whole building, all of the elevations, all the floors, and our team is using those to mark up the conditions we see. And we'll be using those to mark up proposed conservation work. What are the other slides?
Next you'll see
she knows the slides. Yeah, so this is a still. Does it move, or is this just a still?
No, it's a still.
Okay, so this is a still from the 360 view. So we have, some of you have seen this if you like to go to Zillow and look at real estate around the world. Almost all the real estate companies have these, usually through a company called Matterport, but this is through Navis, which is a German company. So we have these 360 views, and you can walk each of these there's little dots all over the place. You can walk through the whole building, every single bit of it, just like Google Street View. And you can measure things, you can go around, you can look above, you can look below, and that information is used to create those drawings. And we, in our various offices, have been able to talk about things and plan our visit. This is a remarkable tool now that we can use now, is to plan our visit before we go someplace, so we know what we need to see and the sort of conditions, how tall of a scaffolding or ladder we need, that sort of thing. So, could you go backwards? I think there was one.
I can.
Yes. So there's the drawings. Back one more. Yeah. So this is the team. I'm a conservation architect, architectural conservator. Helen will be speaking. A non-destructive team who are able to see into the walls to understand the stonework. We have discovered reinforced concrete in some places, which we suspected, but now know is there. Gary and Mike will be speaking about that. Ron, who is a timber specialist. As you know, termites love the wood of Antigua, and they have been very busy everywhere. Ron has been looking at that, and then Evan is a structural engineer whose interest and expertise is in seismic upgrading of heritage buildings. So you have earthquakes. Part of the history of this island and this building is built in 1750, major earthquake in 1843, things collapse. These cast iron columns come in, we think, from Liverpool to support the upper floor. It's used as the courthouse and parliament for many years. 1974, another big earthquake, things collapse. They move out, and then eventually it's rehab, and the museum moves down. So for us, we need to understand what the materials are, what their conditions are, and we're also deeply interested in the history of the building as it informs its conditions. So we've been doing some images of, so we've been gathering images of, like this is the oldest image we believe from 1772. This is a postcard from, I don't remember when this postcard is from, but we're collecting images, interior, exterior images. If any of you have any, if you know any family members that have photographs of judges, of members of parliament, of events, the building was used for social events for many years. If you have any of those, and especially if you have photographs from 1974, we have one photograph after the 1974 earthquake, so we'd like to find more of those so we can understand what was the damage done at that time. What else do we have?
No, we're moving.
That's it, okay. So what we've been doing while I'm here, and each person will talk about it. So I mentioned we did the scanning, the documentation, we're understanding the history, and then we've been doing non-destructive testing, probes, and also digging test bits. There's 2 test bits we dug outside to discover the foundation depth and where it is. And those, I think, are the high points. Thank you.
President, structural engineer with Atkinson, Nolan and Associates. I'm based out of Boulder, Colorado.
And I'm Gary Ogden, also with Atkinson, Nolan and Associates, but I'm based in the New York office.
Right, we're a small company, and I think we have a couple unique characteristics to our firm that get us involved in projects like this. Number one, we are preservation engineers. Most of our work is on historic construction throughout North America, the Caribbean, around the world, quite a number of projects with the World Monuments Fund over the years. We enjoy this work. We like teaching people about what we do and how to use some of the techniques that we're involved with. So that's number one, but I think what's very unique about our firm and the work we do is we have this expertise in non-destructive evaluation. The word's up here. And all it means is we'll use some low-tech methods and some very high-tech approaches to help us and help the design team understand how buildings are put together, what's underneath the plaster, what's underneath the floor that you're standing on, what is it made of, are there issues that we need to consider? And so, Gary, maybe you can talk about, there's 5 or 6 techniques we're using, Gary. We see these beautiful cast iron columns, they're not solid. What are we doing, Gary?
Yeah, so the columns obviously are not just for decoration, even though they look lovely. But one of the first techniques that we worked on is using an ultrasonic thickness gauge. which is basically using ultrasonics. And it's a very simple machine, and it will measure the thickness of a metal. So these cast iron columns, they're typically not made solid, they're nice and hollow. So we have to determine how thick they are, and that helps inform the structural engineer of how much load they can take and structural aspects in that sense. And next, we're talking about surface penetrating radar.
Right, let's talk about radar. So ultrasound listens to reflections of ultrasonic energy. Radar, on the right up here, actually scanning with the radar antenna that uses microwave radar signals, almost like finding airplanes in the sky with radar, a different frequency and all, but this method allows us to look subsurface, behind the surface plaster. Like you see these walls at the windows, you can tell they're very, very thick. Well, what's in there? You know, is it stone all the way through? Is there some core? Is there rubble fill? Those are the kind of things that we're looking at with microwave radar. And we've gone around, we had a lift here, as you can see, up on the parapet, on the second floor, on the first floor, and looking at characterizing, just generally how this building was built, and if there are any variations throughout. We're also looking for repairs, previous repairs that we found some, that they're covered up by plaster. You wouldn't know they're there, but it's very interesting to see the good work that's been done over the years. Gary, you want to talk about the flooring, or? Okay.
So using that same technique of the radar, one of the main aspects we looked at was this floor that you're sitting on right now. And we want to see how it was built, things like reinforcement in the concrete, how thick it is, and that again just helps us understand how everything was constructed and how it will behave in our analysis. As well as we had metal detector, which basically will help us confirm if any of the signatures that we see on the radar, it doesn't tell us if it's metal or not, so we use another tool to confirm our assumptions that it's reinforcement in the concrete.
Yeah, perfect. Yeah, radar is very sensitive to metals. It's almost like a mirror. All the radar energy is reflected by reinforcing bars or pipes and conduits in the walls. It's a very good method for looking at thick sections. What else are we doing? We're doing some semi-destructive work. We're using what's called an endoscope, and I've had the experience. People sometimes have the experience with the doctors looking inside your body with endoscopes. We use some similar equipment, drilling a small diameter hole in a mortar joint, and then just looking inside the wall and trying to understand better and validate what we're finding with the non-destructive methods. The last method I'm going to talk about, and then I'll turn it over to Gary. He'll talk a little bit about wood evaluation. I did get out the infrared camera today. We had a rainstorm today, and infrared cameras are very good at finding, say, some near-surface delaminations. If any of the plaster or the stucco on the outside is loose and delaminated, we can stand on the ground and image the whole building. But today I was looking for moisture. If there's a wet part of the wall, that looks different than a dry part of the wall under this infrared camera that measures the heat radiating off of the wall surfaces. So a lot of different methods. We've got a lot of data. It's going to take a few weeks back in the office to understand this information, but getting really good info. I'm really happy with the data so far. So what are you doing next? What are you talking about? Wood?
I'm going to hand it off to Ron.
Our wood scientist. Yeah,
we're gonna.
thank you. Our wood scientist, Ron Anthony. Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening. My name is. Oops. Can you go back one? There we go. My name is Helen Thomas Haney. I'm an architectural conservator with Jablonski Building Conservation. And as a conservator, I work on historic buildings and structures, or heritage structures and buildings. And what we do is we study building materials. So anything that a building is made of, we look at it, we analyze it to help determine its characteristics, what it's like, how it's made up, but also the deterioration, how is it falling apart. And so we gather all of this information, and then it helps us to make repairs.
to the materials that are sympathetic to the historic material. So on this project, we and me, we've been climbing around the outside and the inside, and I've been noting conditions of the exterior masonry, the stuccos or renders, the metal fence, the metal columns, the cast iron columns in here. I've been looking at the wood. I've been also, digging in the test pits and also taking samples. So you can see pictures of me here, and the lovely Mason Rashidi, who was helping me. And we were taking samples. You can see I'm taking samples of some stone. I have samples of the various renders that have been applied to the facade. I've got samples of the paint on the cast iron and the paint on the columns to help characterize like when those materials came in. And so ultimately I'll take all of these samples back and I will analyze them, characterize them, and that's going to help inform what we do with these things and how we go forward. And so these images just show the image on the right is a historic image, and then you can see some of the conditions that are affecting the facade right now. So, those sorts of things are being mapped and noted on drawings so we can know what we need to do. And then next. Next we have, do you want me to introduce them? Sure. Okay. We have Michael Schuler and Gary Ogden from Atkinson Noland and Associates.
Thank you.
This particular museum, and how do we as a preservation team, as a conservation team, help to preserve that? So from a wood standpoint, there are a number of things that we did, and I say we because the other members of the team, even though I'm a resource to them, they were very helpful to me in gathering the data that I needed. The interaction is critical. The information that I get is tremendously valuable, I hope, to the structural engineer that's going to speak after me. So we're probing on the left. I'm using something like an awl to see, is there surface damage due to, in this case, perhaps termites? So I'm just poking around, I'm looking, I'm doing things that we would typically do. And then when we get to something that is maybe a little more in depth, I'm going to have you go back a slide. So here's Gary again. Now Gary, I borrowed Gary. He's doing something called resistance drilling of some of the timber in the attic. Resistance drilling is very much like an EKG for wood. If you go to the doctor and you get an EKG and it flatlines, that's not very good for you. If we're testing the wood in the museum with the resistance drill and it flatlines, it's not very good for the wood in the museum. So we use that to get an idea of the internal condition of the wood. And so we did that on a number of the timbers, primarily in the attic, to see if they were affected, that we may need to take some remedial measures or some preservative treatments to make them last for decades or centuries beyond where we're at today. So back to the other slide. Here we're in the attic space. And in this case, I'm with Evan in this center photograph. And Evan is the engineer. And it's critical that we have dialogue and we interact. It would be foolish for Stephanie to say, Ron, we got this project. I want you to look at the museum. You go down and do your thing, write a report, turn it in. It's critical that I'm interacting with the other members of the team, and especially with the engineer. What properties do you need to understand if the existing structure is adequate or if it needs reinforcement, if it needs repair? And so a lot of dialogue takes place. Some people say, well, Ron, you're just sitting there, you're not doing anything. No, I'm thinking and I'm working. Don't be fooled by the photo. But that interaction is critically important. I look at things beyond the wood and the timber when I'm doing that. I'm up on the roof looking at sources of moisture. Where's that water coming from? If we have a problem in the attic and that wood is deteriorated, either due to wood decay or termites, where's that water coming from? So looking outside of the actual attic structure gives us insight into where those problems are. That also comes from the work of the people like Mike on the outside of the building where they're looking at certain conditions, whether he's doing radar or infrared or something like that. He's getting information, passing that on to me. We're using that to try and tie all that together. That is the key. I don't know if there's another slide or not. I don't think there is.
There is.
Oh, there is. Okay, so here we go. You know, it's on the outside. We're looking for sources of moisture. This is what it looks like in the attic. Those are in there because I'm guessing most of you have never been in the attic because it is hot and humid up there. But you can see the condition of the wood. I will say this. The wood that is in the attic exhibits a level of craft that you don't normally see. So the bigger timbers in the trusses and in the rafters and some of those other members, they have mortise and tenon joints. So traditional timber joinery that we don't often see in structures. That is part of the craft that you have here that we need to preserve, that we want to preserve. So if there is some repair that is needed, that repair, in my opinion, and my recommendation will be to reflect the accuracy of that craft in the work that is done. So it's not just take out the bad piece of wood, put in another piece of wood. No, it has to also represent, in addition to the material, the craft and the level of that craft so that you can maintain that culture in this building that, again, is more than just the sticks and the stones. Thank you.
Thank you, Ron.
I'm Evan. I am a structural engineer, but I like to call myself a preservation engineer because I very much love old buildings. Even from a small child, I helped my father, who was a restoration contractor, work on old buildings. So I thought I'd get into that as an engineer, coming from a different standpoint. And so my primary focus is how do we go into existing buildings, and often with historic value, and how do we go in with the lightest touch possible. A typical structural engineer will go in and create new spaces, new buildings, helping the architect create these spaces with materials that we really know about and in systems that we can plan. But as an existing building engineer, we walk in and we need to figure out what is going on in this building first. And oftentimes, as we have here, there are different eras of building. A lot of the earthquakes have come in between, and after that it has been repaired. And so how do all of those pieces interact? I have, in the last about 10 years, been working most exclusively with seismic regions and how to rehabilitate historic buildings for to be more resilient in earthquakes. A lot of these historic buildings are designed originally before we really knew a lot about earthquakes. So now the science has come in and we're able to really look at different load paths that they wouldn't have looked at previously. So what does that mean at this stage? We're in the data collection stage. We're coming in, and I've been blessed to be part of this team with all of these experts on that I've worked with in the past to really hone in on what do we have here. We don't have perfect drawings, and none of these existing buildings have drawings because they were built before that was a practice. So what do we actually have, and how are the bones of the building? What beams are supporting the floors? What trusses are supporting the roofs? And more importantly, what are those made out of? And what can we use for material properties so that we can really understand how the building currently performs, how it would perform in an earthquake, and how can we supplement that, repair any damage from termites or anything like that, and get the building into a place where it is safer as a space for people to come in as a museum, and especially for children to learn about the history of Antigua and Barbuda, which is really the most important thing, is how can we improve life safety here and also make sure that this building is resilient for generations to come. And so this is typically what my day looks like, putting on big boots and going in the test pit to try to figure out how deep the foundations go, going up on top of scaffolding, poking sticks with an awl to see how consistent the wood is, working with Ron to figure out what type of wood it is, how much strength that wood has for what it currently sees, working with a great team that has opened up some of the interior finishes. Most of what I need is behind finishes, so we need to poke around a little bit, and we have a wonderful local team. I believe Rashidi here was one of our great staff today, so thank you for your work today. We were able to really open up and understand the bones of the building so that we can better implement a plan and a strategy for recommendations to not only repair what needs to be repaired, but understand the building and find a way that we can rehabilitate it with the least intrusive methods from the structural engineer. I can go on and on for hours talking about numbers and all the calculations that I need to do, but the real thing that we want to look at is the connections between all of these elements, how they perform, how we can tie them together and get the building to work as one system. And I'm going to put in a little ask again from Zach, was that we only have this one photo from after the 1974 earthquake, and we can see there is some damage at the parapets there. If anybody else has any photos of the building after the 1974 earthquake, please get in touch, because that would be very helpful for our kind of forensic investigation here. But we see that, so we know that there's some issue there. There's some concrete that wasn't originally there, so that came in later. So we opened up some probes to try to identify what was stone, and based off of Mike and Gary's scans, we knew where some of the concrete was, so what is in that concrete. So we can be very confident in our numbers to analyze the building and make sure that our recommendations will be the least invasive, but get us up to a performance level that makes the building safer. And I've gone on plenty long enough, so I will leave it back to Zach.
Do you want to go back?
And no, leave it on this slide, please. So an addendum to what I said initially is that another member of our team, who I did not mention, and I regret that, was Marcia Hector with BCQS. Their firm is going to help us as a quantity surveyor, but also has helped us to connect us with Mr. Shion Samuels from here in Antigua, and he brought his team of workmen, and they're the ones who have been sweating and toiling and opening up the ceiling and the test pits and the holes in the building for us to be able to see in. And as Evan mentioned, one of the members of the team is Rashidi, who's here somewhere in the back, and he did a marvelous job, and we think he has a future in conservation. And I think open it up to questions, and I'll kind of be the MC, and if you have something specific for Stephanie, me, or any of the team members, talk about that. So you're asking if it can locate active termites?
Yeah, and X-ray, we don't like using X-rays because X-rays are harmful to humans, but we use microwave radar, and what we're looking for are the after effects. Maybe if a termite has attacked a piece of wood, we'll see voids and things inside there. There's other techniques, ultrasonics, right, Ron? But I know you've seen termites inside wood members using what?
Those harmful X-rays that you were talking about.
I know.
So X-rays, well, let's talk about termites for just a second. Termites are not very cooperative. They tend to come into a piece of wood, and then they may travel a long distance, and then they decide, we're going to munch over here. And we'd really like to know where they've munched the most. But it's difficult to find that. And so techniques to try and do that have been the challenge of people that do non-destructive testing for a long time. And I've done some of that. The short answer is X-rays can do that in some applications, but if you think about it, look at the size of this building, and the X-rays that you can take are about 11 inches by 17 inches. So you'd have to take a lot of X-rays. It would take a lot of time. But you can do that, and you can pick up the galleries, and if there are active termites, you might see those. So that is a way that could be used, but it's not cost effective in almost any application. The other thing is Mike did some infrared work, and there is some success, but it's again very limited, using infrared to pick up the termite activity. And how does it do that? Well, the termites carry the moisture with them. You have primarily subterranean termites. It carries the moisture with them through the wood. And so if infrared is able to pick up subtle differences in moisture levels in the wood, then you can sort of pick that up. You can do the same kind of thing with a handheld moisture meter, but it's very time consuming and it's not particularly accurate. So the best way is to try and sound it or do that resistance drilling. Look at where the sources of moisture are and try and sort that out. We know that in some areas, if we have a certain amount of visible damage from termites, we can sort of extrapolate that with a reasonable degree of confidence to some other areas without spending a lot of time and money to try and get pretty precise data. So unfortunately, the high-tech stuff is not yet there for quantifying or even detecting the termites.
Any other questions? Let Des lead.
Good evening. Has any of the team looked at any of the other buildings that the same architect has built, like the Red Hill Library, and I know he did something in Jamaica?
We're familiar with them, but we have not visited those sites.
Actually looked at it? I'm sorry I have to scoop, but I want to say I am so thankful that all of you professionals with all of your different areas of expertise have come down to help us with this. Thank you.
Hello, Dr. Gabriella Howell. Thank you for all your reports, it's absolutely brilliant. I'm just wondering, and I know Stephanie, you said these are just reports, it's just the research at the moment, but will each of you be providing an actual summary of solutions, not just one solution, more than one solution, so we can do variable costs? Because coming in, obviously, the costs here are going to be very different from maybe previous experience you've had. When that roof gets opened up properly, not just from the scans, which have shown this much, but obviously the bigger problems, so we can actually investigate them. So full prices are able to be available to the museum to be able to make the decision of what the best way forward is. And that's to each individual up there who's running them, but yeah.
The answer is yes, and that is in my brief, is to, as a conservation architect, I chose this team, and I'm responsible for all of their input and output in organizing them, pulling all of that information together, and we will be developing prioritized recommendations for repairs. And those are going to be costed by BCQS, which is a Caribbean-based quantity survey company, and who have been working on Antigua for many years. They're based out of the BVI, and they understand conservation work and specialty trades and that sort of thing. And that information will, Stephanie and I will be working back and forth with the WMF and then with HAS board on what it is they want to do, what funding can be found for that work. Does that answer?
Kind of, but okay.
Well, I can elaborate.
We're free to discuss after as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
Any more questions?
Yes.
Okay, great.
Good evening, my name is Frank Sobel. Let me start by saying I'm absolutely impressed with this team here. It's a team of all these professionals. I didn't get the person behind or the group behind of putting this group together. So whoever you are, heartiest congratulations. This is amazing. But it's you. Okay, well, congratulations.
It is Stephanie Ortiz.
Stephanie, definitely. Well, this is amazing. And I hope you, I don't know how many times you've been here, but if this is your first time, welcome. And I hope you make the best of your trip. And we are extremely pleased with this. My main question is, how much input or cooperation is there from the government in terms of providing whatever they can for this to happen? And because we'd like to see you guys back again in the future for other projects. But is there, what is the government doing, or how much, because I haven't seen anybody represent the government here yet, but how much is the government involved in this type of project? Thank you.
Walter, would you like to speak to that?
that's, thank you, Frankie. That's a very loaded question. Just step carefully here. The building itself, it's owned by the government of Antigua and Barbuda and the Historical and Archaeological Society. Over the years, we have been doing the repairs. So normally what happens is we need repairs done. We buy the materials and Public Works would supply the labor. In recent times, that has become a bit more difficult. Not that they're not willing to help us, but sometimes the minister would prioritize somewhere else, and they know they have to respond to that. Over the years, we figured we've spent about $750,000 of our money, and that's money which I know and could be used for other purposes, but we've had to roll that over to keep the building going. We are working with the government. Hopefully next week when everyone is gone, we'll have a meeting with the minister and try and steer the way forward. This is really a huge project, and as I said in my opening remarks, it's a journey of 1,000 miles, and it's just started with one step. So we have a long way to go, and the first thing that we have to do is we have to identify the cost of repairing the building. So many persons are on board, they're willing to help the museum, but we can't tell them what it's going to cost, $300,000 or $500,000. It's probably going to cost a lot more than that. And during the time that we are going to repair the building, we probably would need to relocate, and that's another issue again, because we've been looking and we have not been able to identify a suitable space as yet.